These are the questions you want to know the answers to. Okay? So let's just take a very quick look at some of our existing housing resources in Fairfax County. The ones that people are really familiar with are public housing and the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. So what we'll do is we'll simply look at them in terms of the things that we just talked about, how you slice and dice housing. So for public housing, here's a website that you can go to get a lot more information about it, but their wait list is, you guessed it, Lowe's. They have subsidized rent. Their subsidized rent means you pay only 30% of your income for rent. However, in public housing, that subsidized rent is unit-based, which means that if you choose, if you are lucky enough to get a public housing unit, and you later on choose to leave, you ain't taking your 30% of your income toward rent with you. It stays with the public housing, okay? Public housing has maximum income limits. Your income cannot exceed a certain amount, and it has no minimum income limit. So that means that your income can be zero, and you will be able to qualify for public housing. Okay? There are also a lot of other criteria that you have to be aware of. Certain people can't be eligible because of certain criminal histories. If they have certain types of crimes that they've committed, they might not be eligible. If they owe a public housing authority money, they might not be eligible. So there are other things you need to be aware of when you apply for public housing.
What does waitlist closed mean?
It means that even if you wanted to get on the wait list to be able to get a unit for public housing, which you wouldn't get now because there is a wait list, you can't even apply to get on the wait list. So how sad is that, right? So it's a very frustrating experience because you would think, well, geez, it's a wait list. Why can't I apply to be on a wait list? Well, the housing authority's rationale is, why have millions of people on a wait list when there's no chance of them ever moving up any further for a huge long period of time? They want to kerchunk their way through who they've got now, and then when they've eliminated, or not eliminated, when they actually housed a certain number of people off of that wait list, then they will open up the wait list again and allow additional people to apply. And what you have to really be aware of is you have to keep tabs on when the wait lists open. Because usually when a wait list opens, it opens for a window of time that's about that big. So it can be just a few hours. It just depends on how soon it takes for them to fill up the number of slots that they have on the wait list. So they may say, the wait list will open on January 1st, 2018. And they will literally open the portal on the website that will allow you to apply to the wait list. And if 200 people apply in the first hour, and that's the number of slots that they had available for the wait list, it will close in a matter of, the time it takes for those 200 hours to get 200 slots to get applied for on the wait list.
And where do you keep tabs at that?
I'll show you in just a second here. So, I'm not going to run through all of these. I just want to give you a sense of the gist of how this works. But Fairfax County also has a rental program that is funded with Fairfax County funds that purchase apartment buildings that people can then actually apply to live in. That wait list is open. So this one you can still apply for. However, you have to remember that this has some units that have subsidized rents and some units that have reduced rents. So it depends on which one you get as to whether you're going to actually be able to afford the rent. All units have maximum income limits, and reduced rent units have minimum income limits.
Are we going to have access to this presentation?
You should. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. Okay, we're going to have. You can go ahead and pass that around if you want. That's why I'm not going to go through this whole thing with you, because I want you to be able to have this. You can play around on the website. You can see how you can get this information. And Fairfax County has a pretty decent website for being able to navigate through. And they have most of their applications, when their wait lists are open, are able to be accessed on the website. If you don't have access if you don't have internet access, you can call Fairfax County Housing Authority's Housing Assistance Center and just do a verbal intake for their wait lists. Okay? Then there's the Section 8 housing program that we're all familiar with. That wait list is closed. This is what I wanted to talk to you about, though. So, to check if the wait lists are open, there's actually a waiting list hotline you can call. So you can call as often as you want to find out if the waiting lists are still closed, if there's any chance of them coming open any time soon, things like that. And then to apply for the programs, you can actually apply online at that email address, or you can call the Housing Application Center and do a verbal application. Okay? Okay. Like we said, there's a housing choice voucher, a Section 8 voucher that is a household-based subsidy. That's the one that you can carry with you, take it with you. Section 8 also has a project-based voucher program. This is lesser known than the housing choice voucher program. This has a wait list as well, but the wait list is open. So you can still apply for project-based vouchers with Section 8. But here again, the subsidy is attached to the unit. So if you were actually lucky enough to get called from the wait list and be eligible for a property and get a unit, and then a year later you decide you don't like it, if you leave, you lose the subsidy. Okay? So these are units that the Housing Authority partners with nonprofits. I think, Trudy, do you have some project-based units?
Yes, I do.
I think you do. Yeah, that's right. So some of Trudy's Brain Foundation Housing has project-based Section 8 subsidies, and there are other nonprofit affordable housing properties around Fairfax County that also have project-based Section 8 subsidies. You apply through the Housing Authority, they will put you on a waiting list, and when your name comes up, if there's a vacancy at one of these properties, they will let you know about that vacancy. You can go check it out. If you like it, it's yours. If you don't, they're going to offer it to the next person in line, and your name's going to go back in the bottom of the list. Okay? Okay. Just quickly, Fairfax County has senior residences. These are also available. Some have subsidized rents. Some have reduced rents. Fairfax County also has rental affordable dwelling units. This has a wait list, but the wait lists are actually kept at each property where there are affordable dwelling units. So, in the back of the room, I left a little handout for you that looks like this. This is part of a section of a publication that the County Housing Authority produces called the Low and Moderate Income Guide to Affordable Housing in Fairfax County. It's a very, very good guide to have. And there is a link to this guide right there, the full guide. This is just a section of the guide, but it has for you a list of rental affordable dwelling unit properties, or properties that actually have these rental affordable dwelling units in them. So you have to actually call each of these properties and find out if they have any units available, or if their waiting list's open. You get your name on it, and then when a unit becomes available and your name's at the top of the list, they'll call you.
These are all reduced rent.
These are all reduced rent. They are not subsidized rent. That's correct. Okay? All right. Now, that's all of the existing Housing Authority programs. Guess what? There's actually a new program coming out, coming to a theater near you. This is called the Bridging Affordability Rental Assistance Program. This was recently funded by the Board of Supervisors and the Housing Authority using some income that came from one of the Housing Authority's other properties. And it's going to be available to certain types of households. Households who can get access to these funds, this rental subsidy, have to be households who are either homeless now, or they have to already be on one of the county's waiting lists, meaning that they have to either be on a county housing waiting list through the Housing Authority, like one of the Section 8 waiting lists, or the project-based Section 8 waiting list, or the public housing waiting list, one of those. Or they have to be on a waiting list through what's called coordinated services planning, which is the county department that you call to get access to all different kinds of county services. So they will sometimes do an intake, and they will refer you to housing and place you on a waiting list. Or you have to be on a CSB, residential waiting list. But you have to be on one of those waiting lists in order to take advantage of this funding. The county's Department of Housing is basically partnering with nonprofits to provide funding for unit-based subsidized rents plus supportive services. So what that means is that if you are on one of these waiting lists, once the county awards its RFP, its request for proposals, which is right now actually in the process of being decided, we will find out which nonprofits get awarded funds. Once we know that, people who are on waiting lists will be able to apply to those nonprofits and say, hey, I'm on a county waiting list and I would like to get one of your units. How do I apply? And as long as you can be verified that you are actually on one of those waiting lists and you're applying to one of the nonprofits that has the money for the homeless portion of this program or has the money for the waiting list portion of this program, then you will be able to potentially get access to an apartment, a townhouse, depending on what the nonprofit has put in for money for, where you will only have to pay 30% of your income toward rent.
What are the supporting services?
So the supportive services are basically what the nonprofit is arranging to provide for. So there are a lot of different arrangements that nonprofits are making depending on who it is they're applying to support. So certain nonprofits are working on projects that are going to be assisting people who are homeless. So they're going to be arranging for certain kinds of supportive services that are going to be helping people get back on their feet, connecting them to, case management services to help them gain access to transportation and employment and different things like that. Other nonprofits are going to be working on waiting lists, reducing different waiting lists. So some nonprofits have actually formed partnerships with the Community Services Board, which will be providing supportive services to people who might be on any of our waiting lists that would be serving people, providing residential services to people who have either mental illness or intellectual disabilities or a substance use disorder. And so we would be providing the services that we would typically provide to people in an apartment setting, whether that's sort of drop-in service to check in with people, helping them with various activities to help them get on their feet and make sure that they're being able to live in an apartment as independently as possible, those kinds of things. Okay? So, the way this works is that there are maximum income limits, but again, there are no minimum income limits. And the idea is that this is supposed to be time-limited assistance. In other words, it's not like a Section 8 voucher to the extent that it isn't gonna, you're not gonna get on it and it can last for as long as you need it to last, as long as you remain income eligible. It's supposed to be time-limited. But what will happen in that limited time is you're either going to be getting those supportive services to help you become self-sufficient enough so that you will no longer need this rental support, or the Department of Housing is going to be working toward getting you